How do you use the Meisner technique, which is working off other people, while doing a monologue? Oh my goodness. If anyone can answer this question, it's me. I've made a living touring one-man shows. I always joke the cast parties suck, but touring is easy, right? But check this out. When people say, how do you do the Meisner technique in a one-man show? I'm like, are you shitting me? Thank God I get to do the Meisner technique. I'm looking right at you. I have a one-man show on Vincent van Gogh. I walk on stage. It's a week after Vincent's death. It's Paris 1890. I'm not doing a one-man show in Cincinnati, Ohio. If I'm doing my job well, if I'm staying true to the Meisner tech, behaving truthfully under this imaginary circumstance, hell no. When I walk on stage, it's Paris 1890. And you're not the audience, you're the people that I've asked to come, because the week before I couldn't speak, I couldn't talk. My brother died in my arms, I was shattered, and so I've asked anyone and everyone, friends, family, enemies, critics, anyone, to come. So when I look out, believe me, there's some people that are just like this. The audience member's been waiting weeks for this. They love Vincent. They're so excited. And other people, they went to dinner earlier and had 4 cocktails and they're like, right? So the second I walk on stage, I'm working off of people. I'm working on, and I'm feeding and working moment to moment. And trust me, 2 hours later, when I take a curtain call, when I come out, I look specifically at certain people because through the course of the night, they were there on a whole nother level. And believe me, they felt it and I felt it. They were right there dancing with me. Excuse me. So it's not a 2-hour, 98-page monologue. It's not a one-man show. If I'm doing a 500-seat theater or 1,000 seat, it's a 501 person play. It's a 1,001 person play. Yeah. So there's that. Okay. Now, but I'm not doing a one-man show. I'm doing a monologue. Sandy would go nuts if you called it a monologue. Don't you ever call it a monologue. He'd get so upset. It's an active incident between 2 people. Period. And there it is. It's an active incident between 2 people. Well, what do you mean? There's no one there. Well, you better use your imagination then. If you're delivering a monologue for an audition and it's a theater piece, you're talking to somebody. It's not a monologue. Who are you talking to? And what was the moment before that pinched this out? Most actors, you know what they do? Hi, my name is so-and-so. I'm doing a monologue from this and that. And then, okay, whenever you're ready, begin. And they just begin. They come from nowhere. There's not a pinch, a cue. What was the catalyst for this to vomit out of your mouth? For those that have been properly trained in the Meisner technique, the very end of 6th session, the final session of the training, is, as Sandy said, an advanced exercise for advanced actors. What's that? Spoon rivers. Spoon rivers are quote unquote monologues. They're about this long, right? They're quote unquote this long. They're not monologues. Hell no. They too are active instances between 2 people, and you better earn. And their life stories, their life stories packed into there. There's so much history and history behind each moment. So, and who are you talking to? And what are you doing? What do you want? The classic old questions. And you better be grounded in that. And even if you're just praying to God, that's an active incident between 2 entities, if you will. So it's never a monologue. And if you treat it that way, guess what? You're acting by yourself. You'd have to have a developed imagination. You'd have to have craft. You'd have to have freakish concentration. You'd have to be highly sensitive, all the things that the techniques are designed to advance. But you'd have to also be crystal clear on who this person is that you're talking to, even if it's thin air. And then commit. And I think that the best advice I can give you in playing around with it as well is, and shoot these, check them out. Do it one time to, if it's appropriate, do it one time to your ex, or no, your grandma. And then the next time to your 5-year-old sister or niece or godchild or something. Same speech, if it's possible, if it's appropriate. And see how the difference of the doing, even if they're not there, practice that. You'll feel the difference if you can really connect to that. But the key is connecting to it, really being grounded. And I can't stress enough the moment before, coming from somewhere. You don't just start talking. What prompted you to say these things? What was the moment before that made you go, okay, I'm, enough. You need to hear this. What did they say? That's the, I'm doing like a, like a bow and arrow. That's the launch into the speech. The moment before is the foothold to launch this, to have this thing vomit out of you. That makes sense? I hope so. Don't ever call it a monologue again for the rest of your careers. Sandy forbade it. As soon as somebody said it in class, he jumped all over that. At age 84, I was with Sandy from age 84 to age 88. Okay, he passed at 91-ish, 2 maybe, can't remember. But anyway, that's not the point. The point is, even at age 88, he would leap out of his, don't call it a monologue. And it never is, and it never will be again, okay? You're doing something to somebody for a specific reason. And the clearer you are on all that, trust me, you'll never say monologue again either. Okay? Hope that helps. Keep them coming.